Okay, well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. It is getting to the final day of our special event series with CNN Call to Earth Week. If you've been tuning in all week long, we've been hosting scientists, explorers, adventurers, and conservationists who are at the front lines of our changing planet, who are bringing back these really important stories for us to see in our homes, in our classrooms, and of course, solutions as well to some of the challenges that we're facing here on planet Earth. We still have one more day to go. Today has been pretty busy. We've already had 2 live events. We talked to Dr. Gladys, who talked to us about the work she's doing with public health, as well as the mountain gorillas in Uganda. We just connected with Paul Salopek, whose incredible Out of Eden walk has taken him for the better part of a decade from Africa all the way now to Alaska in the US on foot. And he's still got to get all the way down to Tierra del Fuego, the most southern point of South America. Our final event today will be a live connection in Vermont with the Vermont Institute for National Sciences. We're going to meet some of their raptors and learn about the work that they're doing there. But before we do that, we've got something pretty cool in store. So for the past 15 years, Under the Pole expeditions have gone to the Geographic North Pole, spent 2 years in Greenland, wintering in the ice, and sailed through the Northwest Passages and to Svalbard. These expeditions stand out due to the rarity of the images brought back, the value of the scientific work and technological innovation in an environment where humankind can only stay on borrowed time out in the ocean. Joining us will be Claire De Courcy. She's Awareness and Education Manager at Under the Pole's Expeditions, and she's going to share a little bit of the past explorations as well as what is coming up for the future. So I'm going to reach backstage and grab Claire. Here we go. Hey, Claire, how are you?
Hi, Joe. Hi, everyone.
Claire, it's great to have you joining us from today. Where in the world are you?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So I'm in France, in a small city called Concarneau in Brittany. So we're by the sea. So I'm not on our sailing ship, which is currently in South America. I'll talk a bit more about it later. But I'm in Concarneau, where our offices are and where the whole team works backstage.
All right, very cool. Well, I'm going to let you take over in just a moment, but I do want to give a shout out to our classrooms who are tuning in. Don't be shy to use the chat sidebar to send in some questions, and a shout out to those who will catch the recording later today if the time zone didn't work. Always great to have you with us. But Claire, we're excited to dive into Under the Pole, so I'm going to let you take over for a little bit.
Perfect. Thank you. So hi, everyone. So Joe mentioned it. My name is Claire, and I'm Awareness and Education Manager for Under the Pole. So Under the Pole was founded in 2008 by Emmanuel and Guylain Perrier-Bardou. So it's really a project that was born from a shared passion for underwater exploration and from diving. So Emmanuel and Guylain are trained in polar expeditions, and that's what enabled them to make diving in extreme environments a unique tool to push the boundaries of ocean knowledge. So today at Under the Pole, we're a big team. We're based in Concarneau, but there's also a whole team, international team of scientists, of divers, of explorers who are dedicated to the study and the preservation of the oceans, and more specifically of deep sea ecosystems and of ecosystems that we call marine animal forests, which I will talk to you a bit more about later. But first, I wanted to show a short video to discover what 15 years of ocean exploration across the planet looks like. So I'll start the video now. Perfect.
On est rentré avec tous nos doigts, tous nos orteils, avec les images qu'on était allé chercher, des images extraordinaires qui témoignent d'un monde de glace, un monde en voie de disparition.
Au moment où Guilain, Emmanuel et leur équipe traversaient l'épaisse couche de glace pour accéder au monde merveilleux qu'offre l'océan Arctique, la suite d'Under the Pole s'écrivait déjà. Avec une volonté, confronter les capacités humaines au milieu sous-marin, afin de mieux raconter et préserver les océans.
Et alors, ça fait quoi de quitter ce monde-là? Et on répond tout de suite, on reviendra.
Plus on s'enfonce dans les profondeurs, plus on a l'impression d'être sur une autre planète.
Notre regard, il a beaucoup évolué depuis 12 ans. Plus que jamais, il faut mettre des moyens et de l'énergie dans l'exploration scientifique. C'est porteur d'espoir, c'est porteur d'avenir. On a besoin de mieux connaître les océans. J'espère qu'on va trouver des gens pour nous accompagner et nous suivre dans ces missions-là sur le long terme.
C'est l'échantillon le plus profond qui ait jamais été récolté dans le monde. C'est extraordinaire.
Et donc c'est toute la vision que l'on a du récif et de son fonctionnement qui est remise en cause.
C'est aussi la finalité de ce qu'on fait Under the Pole, la sensibilisation. Et c'est pour ça que tout l'équipage est mis à contribution aujourd'hui et tout le monde est super content de partager notre passion, de partager nos connaissances et ce qu'on fait.
Deep Life, c'est un programme de 10 ans qui s'inscrit dans la décennie des océans. On va étudier dans le monde entier les écosystèmes profonds à travers la thématique des forêts marines. Et pour ça, on a dessiné le Why Not.
Le Why Not, c'est un peu notre voilier océanographique idéal. On l'a dessiné pour être à la pointe de la plongée scientifique. À quoi ça sert? En fait, ces écosystèmes profonds, ces mondes sous-marins, ces oasis, elles sont restées pendant longtemps dans l'ombre. Et aujourd'hui, on sait qu'on a besoin de mieux les connaître, de les découvrir pour leur conservation.
Alors notre défi à nous avec Under the Pole, ça va être de rendre visible l'invisible.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that video. So it really shows what 15 years of marine exploration looks like. And as you've seen in the video, they've traveled all around the world in very different climates. So from polar climates in the Arctic Ocean, as well as Greenland and the Northeast Passage, from more tropical climates in French Polynesia, in Honduras, Guadeloupe, to temperate seas, for example, in Greece or the Canary Islands. So what is the reason for these expeditions all around the world, it's to study specific depth in the ocean, a depth which lies between 30 to 200 meters deep. So that's really deep, much deeper than we can usually dive. And this zone is called the mesophotic zone. So that is the depth studied by our scientists and our divers who apply scientific protocols to study marine life in this zone. I'll talk to you a bit more later about these scientific tools that we use. So in this mesophotic zone, we focus on a habitat called marine animal forests. So that might sound like an odd name because a lot of us don't really know about forests that exist underwater. So we all know about terrestrial forests, about how important they are for wildlife, for animals, to provide food and shelter for animals. So basically, these forests that we study underwater, they have the same role. They provide shelter, food, and nursery for all the animals that surround it. And in that way, they really act as biodiversity hotspots. The main difference with terrestrial forests is that these forests that are underwater in the mesophotic zone are made up of animals that are attached to the seafloor, such as corals, gorgonians, sponges even. I'll show a few pictures of these animals later. So where have we been to study these forests and what do they look like? I'll show you a few pictures. So here was during the previous scientific mission that was called Deep Hope in 2019. So this is a coral reef which lies at about 80 meters depth. Then they traveled to the Svalbard, which is very north within the Arctic Circle, where they studied a forest and discovered a forest of hydrozoa. So it's quite surprising, but it is an animal. They also went to the Canary Islands, where they dived in a forest of black corals that you can see here in the picture. In Guadeloupe as well, which is a French island, where they studied gorgonians, a forest of gorgonians and sponges that you can see here on the picture. They also went traveling and sailing and diving in Greece in the Mediterranean Sea, where they dived and discovered a magnificent forest of corals and sponges and gorgonians in the Mediterranean Sea. So as I've mentioned before, these ecosystems are really biodiversity hotspots for all marine wildlife that actually really depend on it to live. So our last expedition was in Honduras, in Roatan. So here on the picture, you can see our sailing ship, which is called the Y. It seems very tiny from up there, but it's actually a big ship. It's 20 meters long, and it can host about 15 persons. So of course, divers, scientists, boat captain, as well as a person who is in charge of mechanical problems, for example, on the boat engine. We also have a cook, which is probably one of the most important jobs on board. And sometimes we also host artists as well as photographers to document the expeditions. And so here are a few photos of the sponges and gorgonians, as well as black corals that the divers discovered in Honduras, in Roatan. And here is another picture. So diving is really a unique tool for discovering this very much unknown marine wildlife, but it's also enabled us to see that pollution damages ocean life, even in the depths. We could imagine that pollution only damages the surface of the ocean and that it doesn't touch deeper oceans, but it really does. And here you can see a ray with a fishing line attached to it, as well as plastic pollution that our divers found and often find while they're diving and working. So there are a few different types of threats that exist and that threaten marine animal forests, and therefore all the species that depend on it. For example, certain types of intensive fishing, such as bottom trawling, which is usually done by very, very big fishing boats that have a huge net that trawls the bottom of the sea and that really take everything with it. Climate change also has a big impact on coral bleaching, for example. And finally, there's plastic pollution that I've just mentioned. So aside from expeditions and diving at Under the Pole, we really do this with one objective, which is to reinforce the knowledge on marine animal forests and try and protect them better from human activities. So this is why we have a big activity on awareness raising, just as we're doing today, but also going to classes, having school students visit our boat, as you can see on the picture on the right-hand side. But we also try and talk to decision makers and to politicians with an advocacy work to try and strengthen marine conservation and the protection of these marine animal forests. So now getting back to diving, just to show a few elements of the materials that we use when we're diving. So our divers dive with what is called a rebreather. A rebreather isn't a classical diving tool. Usually when you dive, you have the bubbles coming out of your mouth and back to the surface. But this is a closed circuit, so it recycles the air that we breathe. And that's what allows us to dive longer and deeper and to do all the scientific protocols that we're doing. So we also have a wetsuit, a mask, fins, also a camera that we take underwater to document everything that we're seeing. And finally, there's also an underwater scooter that you can see on the left-hand side. So sometimes the equipment is so heavy and the divers have to swim in quite strong currents, for example. So they'll use this underwater scooter to move around more easily. And as I mentioned at the beginning, at the heart of Under the Pole is really polar diving. So on the right-hand side, you can see a diver jumping into the water in very, very cold Arctic waters. So here the equipment that he's wearing is quite different. He's wearing a hood, a dry suit, so which means that no matter how cold the water is, they'll be dry under their suits, as well as gloves to protect their hands. So how do we dive in different regions? So we can jump backward, for example, from the dinghy, which is a small motorboat from which the divers jump into the water. As you might have noticed in the video that I showed you at the beginning, we also developed an underwater habitat called the capsule that enabled divers to live underwater at 20 meters deep for 3 days and 3 whole nights without coming back to the surface. So that really enabled them to have more time underwater to study and to discover marine wildlife. We can also jump forward from the sailing ship, or as you can see on the picture on the right-hand side, they can dig a hole in the sea ice to dive under the sea ice. So that's what they did, for example, in Greenland. Just to have a few examples of the scientific protocols and tools that we use, for example, a current profiler to know the strength of the current within the forest. There's also a hydrophone, which studies the phonic environment to know what species are present without necessarily seeing them, but by hearing the sounds that they make. We also have photo quadrats, which is a camera attached to, and it allows us to make inventories of all the species that we see underwater. There's also sediment traps to study what the seafloor is made of. And surprisingly enough, I don't know if you guys knew this, but they can have pens and tablets on which to write underwater, a specific type of pen that they can use. So just to conclude, for our upcoming expedition, we'll be taking the team back to polar regions, but this time, and for the first time, they'll be heading out to Antarctica, to the Great South. So they'll be leaving early December, and we'll be organizing a meeting so that you can meet them just as today, but from Antarctica. So to conclude, I'll show you a very short video. It's in French, but it also has subtitles to present this upcoming expedition.
C'est l'endroit le plus isolé et le plus froid de la planète, l'un des milieux les plus extrêmes du globe.
C'est aussi l'un des endroits les moins explorés et pourtant l'un des plus riches en biodiversité marine.
Pour la première fois, Under the Pole a choisi de mettre le cap sur ce continent qui suscite autant d'émerveillement que d'interrogations. L'Antarctique. Fin novembre, nous embarquerons donc avec 15 équipiers pour une expédition de 3 mois en eau profonde et polaire à bord du Wild. Avec en ligne de mire la poursuite d'une mission, Deep Life.
Deep Life est un programme international de recherche qui vise à renforcer la connaissance scientifique des écosystèmes marins et plus particulièrement des forêts animales marines situées dans la zone mésophotique. Vous savez, cette zone située entre 30 et 200 mètres de profondeur sous la mer, qui joue un rôle écologique clé puisqu'elle pourrait servir de potentiel refuge face au changement climatique et aux pressions humaines pour des tas d'espèces.
Il est donc primordial de mieux comprendre son fonctionnement dans tous les milieux du globe, tropicaux, tempérés et polaires, pour pouvoir mieux la protéger. Voilà pourquoi nous repartons étudier ces forêts animales marines, mais en Antarctique cette fois. C'est l'endroit le plus isolé.
So that's it for me. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the videos. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to exchange with you all.
All right, Claire. Hey, thank you for that great presentation. I really like the videos as well. It really highlights the work they're doing.
These images are really amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I imagine it's a lot of excitement right now preparing for this next expedition, logistics, getting people in the right places. I'm sure it's pretty busy.
Yeah, everyone's running around a little bit. So the sailing ship right now has just left Brazil, I think, and is headed to Ushuaia. A first team will leave from France at the end of next week. And then the rest of the team will arrive in Ushuaia early December to set sail. So they'll cross the Drake Passage, which will take them about 5 days. Yep. And the Drake Passage is known for its difficult sea conditions and very, very strong winds. So that'll be a first big step.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the way to Antarctica.
All right. Well, let's get into some Q&A action. If you are tuning in via YouTube, don't be shy to use the chat sidebar and send us in some questions. I've got a few already here to get us started. Great. So I've got a classroom here in Canada, in Ontario, and they're noticing from the video that it looks like it's really tough on their bodies diving in the cold, and it's tough on the equipment. So, why do they do it? What keeps them going in those tough environments?
That's a really good question, I think. And I think it's a mix of passion. I think when you start doing these kinds of expedition, you just want to get some more, maybe, as well as will to know more about these regions. So Antarctica, there's been a very few deep diving expeditions there. So we don't really know what lies underwater there. So it's also a big curiosity and a will to protect these zones because if we don't see them, we'll never be able to protect them. So diving there and then taking back these images, these videos, this scientific knowledge, I think that's what then enables me, for example, to talk about it to classes, to share this with the school students, but also to strengthen protection of these zones.
Yeah. And that actually brings me to our next question, which is about you. This is from a classroom in the US, and they're wondering, do you get to go on the expedition sometimes?
So I haven't yet. I've been working for Under the Pole for about a year now. So the heart of my job is really to share all this knowledge and passion with the classes. But before I did this job, I was a skipper and sailing teacher on big sailing boats. So I did a lot of sailing, and I also do a bit of diving. And I will probably join some of the missions, but more when there's possibility for awareness raising, for meeting classes, school students, where we are headed, which is not the case in Antarctica because there's no one living there permanently.
Yeah. So that brings me to the next question is, during the expedition, what is your job going to look like? What is your day going to look like while the expedition is going on?
On the boat or in France?
Yeah,
or maybe
like
both.
With the education, the awareness side of things.
So we have a big program coming up. We've designed this 6-week program. So it's in French at the moment. We haven't been able to translate it in English yet. But we have a 6-week program where classes will receive every week a sort of educational tool that they can use to follow the expedition every week for 6 weeks. And there's also going to be a few meetings just like today, but with the team on board.
All right, very cool. Okay, another question coming your way from the chat. And maybe we can answer this 2 ways because they're curious about the wildlife, the marine life seen on the dive. So maybe can you share some of the marine life that they've seen in some of the cold environments, but then maybe too, because you said you've done a bit of diving, you can share some of the marine life that you've seen on dives.
Yeah, sure. So what they focus on is really these ecosystems called marine animal forests. So that's what we study and that's what we focus on. But it doesn't mean that we don't see any other wildlife during the dive. So they can see dolphins, whales, a lot of different types of fish, and these coral reefs and gorgonians, for example. I showed you pictures of it, which are really amazing. And as for me, for diving, I dived in Brittany, which is in France, and you could imagine that there's maybe not that much wildlife there, but I saw, a lot of fish, and as well as it's a phoque in French, a seal, I think, seals.
Yeah.
Yeah, that swam really close to us. So that was a really, really beautiful moment. Yeah.
Pretty cool. Okay, so I've got a question from a classroom back here in Ontario. So this is a classroom in Hamilton, and they're wondering about the capsule. Is it hard to move to different places? Can you reuse it over and over again? How does the capsule work?
Yeah, that's a really good question because I mentioned the capsule, but very rapidly. So the capsule, we only use it for specific research programs. So we don't deploy it for every mission that we do. So the one time it was deployed was in French Polynesia in 2019. It has to be in relatively hot waters because it doesn't keep you warm inside.
Right.
So it's not that easy to move around. It's about 3 square meters inside. So it's quite small, but it still takes a lot of development and engineering to put into place. So for now, we've only used it once for about a month and a half, where the divers took turns each for 3 days and 3 nights in a row to stay in the capsule. And we're working on next capsule program next year, where we would have 2 capsules this time, one at 20 meters and one deeper at about 40 meters, to really have longer divings and stayings below 40 meters, so in the mesophotic zone that I mentioned earlier.
Okay. I've got a follow-up question about the team. So how many people will be on the boat, and will people come on and off at different times?
Good question. So there will be about 14 persons on the boat. I mentioned earlier a bit the different jobs that we have. So there's also going to be a doctor on the boat, a mechanician who will take care of any problem that might arise with the boat, because it's such extreme and hostile regions that we need the boat to be in a perfect shape. Then there will be divers. There's also going to be Emmanuel and Guilain's 2 kids, Tom and Robin, who are 9 and 11, and their school teacher, Aurélie, who's going to be on the boat with them to do the school classes with them during the expedition. And then we have a cameraman, Alex, who will be there. So all of these people will stay for 3 months. They won't go back to Ushuaia, but we're going to have another sailing boat that will help us to bring back and forth some material, as well as some people who might come for just a month or for a shorter period of time.
Yeah, all right. Well, in the video, I've got a student here who noticed that the ship had a little bit of ice around it.
Yeah.
Can the ship, how thick of ice can the ship move through, the boat?
So some ships are, I don't know how to say in English, but some ships are made to break the ice in front
Yeah,
of them.
icebreaker. Yeah.
Icebreakers, that's
Yeah.
easy. So that's not our case, but it's still a ship made of aluminium, so it's very strong material, so it won't break, but it's not made to break the ice when it moves forward. Yeah.
All right. So I've got a student here in the chat. You mentioned Gorgonians, and they've never heard that term before. So can you tell us a little bit more about what Gorgonian is?
Yeah, so it's an animal which is attached to the seafloor. They're called sessile animals. So they're not moving around, they can't move, but they're still animals. And they feed on the small particles that are brought by marine currents. So it's really interesting because they really look like trees or plants. You wouldn't notice that it's an animal. So that's what makes them so incredible. And the fact that they're animals also means that they can live deeper than what plants could, because they don't need light to live.
Yeah, and beautiful colors too, right? I think they can come in some really beautiful colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
And it's also the case for black corals. When we talk about corals, we usually imagine scleractinian corals, so like hard corals that build the coral reefs. But there's also different types of corals, just like black coral that is also an animal. And this one doesn't need any light, so you can find it very deep underwater.
All right, very cool. So this is kind of an interesting question. This is from a classroom in Toronto, and they're wondering, we can use robots underwater, like ROVs. What's the benefit of having a diver go down and do those deep dives as well?
That's a really good question, I think. So in some of our missions, we've used robots before human divers dive to have a first images of these ecosystems that we dive on. But having human divers allows to have this, how can I say, this human analysis, kind of this human touch of where to go, what to look, as well as taking short, small
Samples?
Pieces of small echantillon pieces of the gorgonians or the corals. And it's also quite expensive to develop these robots. So usually when they're used, they go deeper. And that's one of the reasons why the 30 to 200 meters depth has kind of been forgotten in conservation and exploration.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Okay, let's see. Okay, I mean, this question you might be able to answer because obviously
I'll do my best.
Yeah, you know the team, and you know, obviously have seen the video. So they're just wondering what it's like to dive under the ice.
Yeah, I've never done that myself. So all I can share is what my colleagues have told me about it, and what I've seen and shared from working at Under the Pole. It's hard to answer without having done it, but I think it's very cold. It can be very dark. And they're also attached to a long string because they have to find the exit. So when they dive, they will dive from a small hole that they've dug. So they're tied to a string which is called the fil d'Ariane, Ariane string, which enables them to find the exit when they come back to the surface.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I imagine too, there's, you know, under the ice, there must be maybe sound of the ice kind of moving and creaking and groaning. So I imagine that's probably pretty interesting. The light's probably really cool. Wow, very
It's
neat.
also important to keep in mind that these dives are very long, and that when they come back to the surface, they have to do some decompression stops
Yeah.
in order to allow their body to get used to the pressure coming down. So these are very long dives.
I want to talk about that for a moment, because I'm a diver, so I know all about decompression stops, but classrooms probably won't be familiar with that. So why do they have to make these stops? What is a decompression stop?
So basically, the deeper you go in the ocean, the higher the pressure, because you have more water over you, so the pressure is stronger. So your body is going to get used to a higher pressure. So that's why when you go back to the top, when you go back to the surface, you have to give your body time to adjust, to have the same pressure inside the body and outside. Otherwise, you can have some really bad accidents. And so that's why it's really important for them to take that time to make the stops. And they have a small computer that looks like a watch, and that will tell us how long we have to stop at each depth.
Yeah. So I want to maybe try to put this into perspective for classrooms. So on like a typical recreational dive, you might do like a 5-minute safety dive or stop, where you kind of stop at about 15 feet and just give some time for some gases to come out of your blood system. How long do some of their decompression stops last?
The diving can be 3 hours and a half. So, and most of that is the decompression stops.
Yeah.
So that's
a long time. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very cool. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? Okay. Funding. Where does the funding come for expeditions
like this? That's a very good question, because we bring back a lot of beautiful images, videos, scientific knowledge.
Yeah.
We go to classrooms, we do a lot of, but we don't make money with what we do. So we need to have financial partners and fundings, which allows us to keep going and to do these expeditions. So there's actually one person in the office in Concarneau. Her full-time job is to look for funding and for partners.
Yeah.
So we have a mix of companies and sponsors who help us. And then we also have, for example, we're based out in Brittany here. So the Brittany, which is a region in France, helps us with funding for educational activities. So it's really a mix of different sponsors, local finances, etc. Yeah.
Okay. Claire, I've got one last question before we sign off for today. And this is from a group of students in Connecticut. And they're wondering if their kids get to go on all the expeditions and do school like that.
They do. Yeah. And the teacher is always there on the boat. So usually one mission will last about 3 months. Antarctica will be a bit longer, but last year it was about 3 months. So they go out of school for these 3 months. They have school on the boat, and then they go back to school when they get back to France.
Pretty cool. Are they scuba divers as well? Have they learned how to dive?
Yeah, they have.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, Claire, I'm going to start off with a huge shout out to our classrooms. Thank you so much to the classes who joined us today. Thanks for your great questions. To those who will tune in later to the recording, great to have you with us here as well. Claire, thank you so much for joining us today. It was really great to learn.
Thank you for having me. It was great to meet you and all the classes as well. And just maybe a little shout out for an upcoming meeting that we can have with Emmanuelle, the founder, when she'll be in Antarctica. So we'll have to see when we can organize that, but she really wants to do this, to show you the boat as well as what Antarctica looks like.
Perfect. Well, we very much look forward to that in the new year. I will reach out and make sure we get something organized. And Claire, thank you so much for the work you do, because you know, if you're doing the work but not telling people about it, if you're not sharing it and communicating what you're finding, then why are you doing it? So you've got a really important job too.
Yeah, it's a bit behind the scenes sometimes, and it's not part of every mission. But I love doing it, and I think it's really important. Yeah.
Perfect. All right.
Thank you.
All right. I hope everyone has a great weekend. We hope to see you in more events coming soon. But for now, we're going to say goodbye and sign off. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.